Mike Butcher at TechCrunch, Davos Live, and we have Lucian Tarnowski of Brave New. Brave New is an online education company, but it's also working very intimately with enterprise, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You guys have been following this path for a few years now, but you've changed what you've done, as you've sort of moved with the marketplace. I think it would be good to get an update on where you are now, because a lot of people are probably familiar with Brave New as being online education inside the corporates and enterprise, but you come up with it, you're now going in a interesting new direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Mike. Brave New, we're an intelligent learning platform. So what we're trying to do is really help companies share knowledge in a much, much more effective way. Because right now they're really, really bad at this. Their knowledge tends to get stuck in silos. And people are not being effective. They're not achieving their potential.
I think a lot of people are quite familiar with the sort of, using Yammer or something, and then there's a document somewhere else, and how do you get to it? I mean, so what particularly is different about what you guys are doing?
So you can think of us like a Slack for learning, but what we focus on particularly is doing this through online communities. So what we do is actually not new. It's I've sometimes described it as like Back to the Future. We take this old model of guilds and we bring it online. It's like
sort of
medieval
guilds.
Medieval guilds, exactly.
Right.
I mean, people have organized themselves through the communities they belong to since ever.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is really understand human behavior and understand how best to create engagement online and recognize and reward people. So we do a little bit of game dynamics to try and help people become lifelong learners and get recognized for what they're learning on an everyday basis. But it's different to Yammer, it's different to SharePoint, it's different to Slack and other players like that, because I still think those companies haven't lived up to the promise of enterprise social. It's meant to transform the way we work, and it really hasn't. When you look at those platforms, they really struggle to get engagement. And so what we've tried to do is understand the motivations behind people. So we really do three things with our clients. We're, one, the platform that helps this learning take place. And we sit on top of the open web, and we enable companies to curate content from any source.
Right.
It makes sense of it. The second thing, with a methodology, we help companies actually build this and build successful online communities. And the third thing, which I think is the most exciting part, is the intelligence side, is the analytics engine, where we're tracking what people are learning and rewarding them for it. And we create for the organization what we describe as the knowledge graph. This is the flows of knowledge around the organization, which the company just right now doesn't have any insight to. That people's learning is happening in a black hole. And so my argument to companies is, look, if you can understand what your top performers are learning, you can help scale that. Because most companies will agree that 80% of the value is being created by 20% of their employees. And so what we want to help companies answer is, how do you understand what those 20% are doing? How do you understand what they're learning and who they're learning from and how they're learning? And if you can do that, you can help them be more effective, because I think there's a huge opportunity for companies to better utilize their human capital.
Is it the case that, what's the business model in terms of how are you selling this into people, into companies? Unpack this. Tell us.
Sure. So we charge based on based on the size of the communities we power. So we call these community ecosystems. So a company can have multiple communities with us, and we charge based on how many people are there. So up to 200, up to 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 plus.
Yeah.
And we get paid as the communities get successful. So they've got this brilliant network effect. But I guess one of the most exciting parts of the business model is our customers are becoming our resellers. And that's taking us into more companies. We're in now like GE, Genentech, Lockheed Martin, Mercer. We're doing about half our revenue comes from healthcare, helping healthcare companies innovate. Because the US healthcare system is pretty archaic with how it shares knowledge, and the average innovation takes 18 years to go through the system. We help speed that up, almost like a virtual incubator.
The enterprise space is seen a sort of resurgence in the last few years. You're an entrepreneur in an enterprise startup. Do you think that's going to be affected by any kind of the ructions that are going on in the market right now in terms of valuations and the bubble slightly sort of bursting a little bit now?
Well, I think enterprise is actually on the rise. I think the question is, really for the consumer players, like, do they really have a legitimate business model? We're about to hit cash flow positive. Not many companies in Silicon Valley are at that stage. Even the big ones with the unicorn valuations. Slack is now. Slack is not really a competitor, they're really going to be a partner that we will go, we plan to use their ecosystem. They're at $2.8 billion, but that might even be arguably small compared to some of the consumer players that really haven't got a legitimate business model yet.
Right.
So I think there's going to be more and more interest in the enterprise play, particularly companies that at any point can be profitable. And I think 2016, I think it's going to be a very turbulent year.
Yes. Yes.
I'm planning.
I think most people agree. With
that.
Yeah,
for sure. And we're just starting our fundraise, and we plan to raise as much as we can before things change. Because we really want to execute. I think it's actually turbulent times are a great time to build a disruptive business model. And I often say, from a vision perspective, we're all about the collective potential of human capital. And if you think about human capital as an asset class, it's the world's largest asset class, but it's also the world's most wasted. And so if you think in turbulent times about how companies can better utilize their human capital from an asset class perspective, really we're only scratching the surface. I would argue that even the best companies are at 10% utilization of their human capital. There's probably another 10x they can do in terms of making their people more effective. So for us, we think that that's going to be a great business model to disrupt when things do get turbulent.
You're an entrepreneur. You're originally based in London, and now you're based in San Francisco. Your team is in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You live there yourself. What's it like being an entrepreneur coming from Europe and then moving to SF?
I miss Europe. There's many things about Europe that I prefer to San Francisco. We have, and we know each other from this community, we have a very close-knit community of friends that really support each other and look out for each other. You've been amazing at helping create that community and support it. San Francisco doesn't have quite so, it's so big that it doesn't have the same kind of single group where everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
But San Francisco's the Premier League.
Yeah.
I like to take a history view of this and say, look, when you look at history, it was not all of it mattered. It was a series of moments that matter.
Yeah.
And when you look at those moments, place was critical. It was happening in Florence, it was happening in Milan, it was happening in London. And when you look at those places, it's always people that all knew each other that make the history. And so I think if you take that historic perspective, you could almost say for sure that that's happening today. That ecosystem is there in San Francisco. It's where the venture is. It's where the great ideas. It's where people go to really scale their ideas.
Yeah.
And things happen there. So I think entrepreneurs, if they can, should try and do a stint in the Valley.
Yeah.
It's really helped us. It's really helped us grow up.
I think also from a fundraising perspective, and you guys are going out there right now, there's a lot of opportunity. But anyway, Lucian Tarnowski of Brave New, thanks very much for coming to talk to TechCrunch here at Davos.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.